We talk to the legends of the creative and entertainment industries. We talk to those on the rise. Lance Steen Anthony Nielsen asks about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. This is Outcast Creative, and this is Industry Interviews.
Certainly is. And it's the second of 3 interviews this week. For those people tuning in, I also interviewed yesterday Cassandra McGrath, one of the starring actresses of the 2005 hit horror film Wolf Creek. And I think we're going to have the other actress, thanks to her, coming on the channel in the not too distant future, as well as some other people from the Australian film and television world. So watch this space. More exciting guests coming your way soon. On Thursday at a slightly different time, and I'll mention this again at the end of the stream at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm interviewing the one and only Sean Cronin, who is an actor that you will have seen in films, the Mission Impossible franchise, playing bad guys in all kinds of movies and television. But more recently, he's gone into directing and producing and has made no less than 3 feature films in the last 18 months. So it's going to be very interesting to talk to him. But tonight, I've got a very special friend on, a good friend of mine who I've known in the industry for a long time. One of the things I like about this man, he is a proper grafter. And by that, you know, there's a lot of people in the industry that talk the talk, but don't necessarily walk the walk. I have to say that this man is a good example of hard work pays off. And I've watched his career go from strength to strength and height to height over the last few years. And I can't think of anyone who deserves the success that he's been getting more. So you may have seen some of his recent stunt work. He started off in films like Captain America and The Hunt for Gollum, which was a fan Lord of the Rings film. I actually sat next to him in the premiere of that one. But then went on to do things like stunt coordinator and second unit director on films like The Rise of the Foot Soldier franchise, Once Upon a Time in London, and a whole load of others. He's also done a number of Scott Adkins movies, including One Shot and Avengement. Recently worked on Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom, and also did season 4 of Vikings. So 122 stunt credits, 30 as an actor, and various other roles. My extreme pleasure to welcome to the Outcast Creative channel, Dan Stiles.
Hello, Lance. Good to see you again.
It is good to see you, sir. If not in person, virtually, so to speak. And thanks very much for coming on the channel. One of my fans, howdy from East Tennessee. So there's people tuning in from far and wide already. That's always nice. Always nice to know. So you've been in the industry a long time. I think you've been in the industry almost as long as me. For our sins, we can see from our hair. We've both been in for a similar length of time due to our hair growth. You started off as an actor initially.
Yeah.
Did you go somewhere to? Oh, well, before we do that, I'm going to do my quick 5. Sorry, before we get into the career questions, I'm going to do my quick rapid fire questions that I always ask all my guests. I nearly forgot. What was the first movie you saw at the cinema?
It must have been Disney. My dad used to take me to the cinema when I was very young. So I'm guessing I think it was either Bambi or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, something like that.
Yeah, Bambi was the first one for me, and that got a re-release in the late 70s. So quite possibly you went to the same sort of one as me. What was the last film you saw on the big screen?
That would have been the Avatar, the latest Avatar.
Okay, yeah, I saw that. I saw that in 4D in a chair that threw me around all over the place.
Wow.
I felt like I'd been on one of your stunt courses when I came out from watching that film. Do you have a British actor or actress that you would really like to work with who you haven't worked with yet?
Good question.
Off the top of your head,
I think someone who does a lot of their own stuff. So Keanu Reeves or Tom Cruise, and they're lovely people as well by all accounts. So yeah. They would be up there.
I've heard nothing but nice things about both of them. That's always nice to hear. Tell me a favourite film that you watch at least once a year.
Oh, that's hard because I really struggle to watch films more than once at the moment because I've got a kid. So
I know you're really busy. But think back to the time before you had the young child.
Probably like Braveheart.
Yeah, that's up there. I watch Braveheart.
Yeah. The Last Samurai.
Braveheart's such an easy one to just flick on, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a really easy film to just put on in the background, and then you get tuned in and you end up stopping whatever you're doing. Last Samurai is another good one. Do you have a film that you consider a guilty pleasure?
Yeah, Robin Hood, and Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, I would agree. Have you got a favourite television drama series of all time, British or American? One for you that set the standard and you thought, wow, this is.
I think Band of Brothers, and that's something I try to watch every year, but it's a long one. But yeah, Band of Brothers just blew it out the water.
Are you looking forward to seeing Masters of the Air when that comes out? Because we are doing a special stream about that. We're doing a watch party, in fact, and I want to have I'm going to have a panel of guests on that show. And as you're a man of action, literally, it'd be great if you can come on if you're able to. There's a recent production still. I mean, I think the effects work on it alone just looks fantastic.
Yeah, I saw the trailer. It looks great.
Yeah, it does look good. And that of course, was one of the first productions, I think, to resume. It got partially shut down during COVID and then resumed. And bit of a hectic schedule. I'm sure you had your own experiences of that. We'll get into it. Okay, that's my fast questions done. So you started off as an actor. Yep. Did you go and train anywhere?
I had like an after school class when I was a teenager, and then I applied for drama schools. I had a few auditions, even a few recalls, but didn't get through. Tried again for a year or another year after that. Didn't get through, so obviously wasn't good enough. But I'd already kind of made the commitment to do it. So I was living up north when I was younger, so I moved down to London, got a job, and just thought, well, I'll do it anyway. I knew some people in the industry from my theatre work, so they kind of helped me out. They gave me some training. I'd been in theatre jobs before that anyway, so I kind of had the on the job experience and managed to make my own way and did all right. Wasn't massively successful, but kept going.
So, I mean, I think it's fair to say your kind of baptism of fire into professional acting was in stage work, and you were a regular on the English panto scene, which, as Alan Partridge said, the money's better than you think, I believe was his exact words. I'm not sure if that's true, but you did that for a few years, right? Yeah,
one of the first things I did through the acting group when I was a teenager was audition for the local company, which was actually a touring pantomime company. And so I started with them when I was about 16, and the producer kind of took me under his belt and ended up assisting him and getting lead roles, mostly either the bad guy like Ebenezer in that photo, in Aladdin, or I often played the huntsman in Snow White.
I can't remember which one I came to see you in, but I did see you in one. Up north somewhere, I think it was. It was like outside of Manchester, or
was that the one with Richard? That might have been Dick Whittington. I think we were the pirates in Dick Whittington.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That would have been it. That would have been it.
So did about 15 years of panto, which a lot of people don't know.
That's a lot. That's a long tour of duty on. So how did I remember, I had a load of imitation firearms that I'd used for my play about Northern Ireland, which you asked if you could purchase them off me because they were kind of sitting in my basement, not really doing anything, and I was hoping to do that play one more time. One day you said, "Oh, yeah, I'll be interested in purchasing these." which you did, and then the next thing I knew, you were, I think, running a sort of fight drama school. Would this have been 2011? Is this about right? ID drama?
Yeah, ID's I think was 17 this year. So
17 years this year. Great.
2011 would have been just. I can't do the math.
So okay, well, just explain to my viewers how did I think it's called ID Fight now, but it was called ID Drama when it started. And my impression of it was, when I first saw it on Facebook, was that it was essentially you were teaching people to act and fight at the same time. That was kind of the impression I got, which I thought was quite good, because I thought that's pretty unique. Not many people are doing that. Is that what it still is? I mean, tell us the history about it a little bit before we get on to the productions you've
well, I was doing a show, a musical, funnily enough, and the guy at the front there, whose name is Ronan Trainer, he was the fight director on it, and both of us had recently or were training to be teachers with different stage combat academies. Mine was the British Academy of Dramatic Combat. He was training with the British Academy of Stage and Screen Combat, which are essentially the same thing. Yeah. And they offer accredited syllabus training for all sorts of performance combat. So we teach sword work, unarmed work, knife, various weapons, long, short, big and small, like the ones in the video. Sure. And so we basically set up independent drama to be a platform for us to teach the courses. And obviously, as struggling artists, we needed a second income as well, and that kind of grew into a massive career. And ID grew and grew and grew, and now we offer a lot more than just the courses. We do firearms, we do stunt workshops like wire work and driving and horse riding and all sorts. So yeah, and now we've got our own venue, so we're actually doing 7 days a week all year. We're doing something.
So you've effectively got a school that's in a permanent location. Where is that?
It's in Bromley by Bow, near 3 Mill Studios.
Yep. Okay, Bromley. South east.
East, yeah.
Okay.
On the district line.
And what if someone was to come to you, just for the benefit of anyone watching, and say, right, I want to get into stunt work. I'm fresh out of drama school, but I'm quite physical. I'm quite athletic. This is what I want to do. Maybe as a second income stream, is also do stunts as well as act. What would be the first course you would say, well, this is the course you should do with us? What course would you be recommending?
Well, both the academies I mentioned have a standard course, which is sword and unarmed work. And that's kind of where you learn the foundations of the safety and the technique behind.
So you'd rather they go there first before they come to you?
Well, we run those courses.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And that's where you learn footwork. That's where you learn control, distance, timing, partnership, coordination, all the things that are kind of primary foundation level stuff to then progress to bigger weapons, to doing more complicated choreography, and understanding the performance side of it. And through those courses, you also have to perform. You have to do a scene with your fight choreography. Right. So you do need to be able to act.
Yeah,
fight as well.
I think acting is a really important part of stunt work that a lot of people overlook, and certainly back in the day, there was not in the 70s and 80s. There was not an abundance. There was a good hardcore of stuntmen who could do great stunts, and I think the stunt sort of career back then, you kind of had 4 disciplines, didn't you? Which was like fighting, firing, driving, and horseback riding, and swimming, or something. 5 maybe. and stunts were divided into those 5 categories back in the 70s and 80s. That's all changed now, I believe. But there wasn't a focus on getting stuntmen that could necessarily act as well. Though you did have a few people that did that, like Pat Roach, of course, the late great Pat Roach, and there were a few. But so this is, I think it's fundamental now, and because the stunts in films is so much more common now, of course, than before. Yeah. So many more TV shows with spectacular stunts and so on. So what kind of, so to do a sort of an initial starting course with you guys, what sort of cost is somebody looking at for a course like that?
They're all different. I mean, the courses I just mentioned are in the, I think, £300 to £400 for about 5 to 7 days training.
Right. And is that 1 week, or is that 1 day a week? Or how does that work?
Again, we offer different varieties, so you can do an intensive, which would be all in one go. Some of them we break it up over the weekend, so you do just weekdays, so you have a couple of days off in the middle. Right. And then some you could do like 1 day per week, or even evenings per week. So you're spreading it out over a longer period.
Right. Okay.
So there's usually a variety, so people with different work commitments can choose. But we have 1 day courses, we have taster sessions, we have something called Combat Lab, where we just do a different thing every week, and it's just a chance to kind of explore different varieties outside of the normal syllabus and try different things. And for people that have done a lot already to kind of keep their hand in and try different things that they may not have done before. So, and that's just a few hours every Sunday night.
Okay. So you've got, let's go back to so that started, I guess that came out of the partnership with meeting the chap at the theatre, and that started to grow and grow. You were already doing stunt work yourself. So let's talk about some of the early stunt work that you did. I mean, we must give The Hunt for Gollum a quick shout out, because I'm quite fond of that movie. In fact, I have the DVD of it in the other room, funnily enough. See if I can grab a still of it. Yeah, here we go. Because this is a good still of you, Dan. I think I've seen you like this on a night out occasionally. Here we are. So yeah, because I remember there was a video with somebody being fed crisps through their makeup, and they were having a snack between takes, and that you and I, that was part of there was a sort of making of that was shown in the cinema. I was sitting next to you, and we were both having a laugh at that. So this was a crowdfunded Lord of the Rings fan film, kind of about the hunt for Gollum when he escaped. It's kind of set during the Fellowship of the Ring, and I think it's in that timeline. Yeah. And it was a lot of fun. It's kind of about 35, 40 minutes long, something like that. And you played one of the 2 key orcs, I think, in the
this one was Dabgash, who we had a bit of dialogue, and then we get brutally killed, and then I actually come back as a couple of other orcs in the main fight scene at the end.
Ollie, who is a film director who's on here, even The Hunt for Gollum is better than Rings of Power. I'm not going to comment on that, but yeah, I'd certainly do like The Hunt for Gollum. Would this be your first professional job of kind of doing stunt work on camera effectively?
I don't think so. I think I'd done stuff before this, but I think this was probably one of the most fun early ones. Looking back, it was a good team. All the fight team around us were kind of the people that I'd trained with and come up with. So we were all of a similar level, and we were all keen for kind of pursuing this kind of work. And we had a lot of creative control. That's me at the back with the red mark on my head.
I see.
We had Ruth and Rachel, who were the choreographers on this, and we all knew each other. It was just a great team and great fun. And Chris Bouchard, who's the director, I actually still keep in touch with, and we worked together a few years ago on another feature of his, which isn't out yet. But
he did a feature. He did a feature film called Hackney's Finest.
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah, and I tried to get hold of that for a really long time and couldn't seem to find it anywhere.
Okay.
It's a shame it didn't get a bigger release because I heard good things about it. He's just done another movie, is that right?
I know he did The Little Mermaid after a while, and then he did this one called Awakened Dreams, which is having a bit of post-production because it's a very heavily VFX film.
I take it not the Disney reboot of Little Mermaid. You're not
No, it was. I don't know if it was actually called The Little Mermaid, but it was the Little Mermaid story anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, a different one.
I remember this fight sequence well. How much rehearsal was there to stage this?
We had quite a bit because it was crowdfunded and we weren't really getting paid for it. It was kind of whenever we had free time, and we were all young and keen, so we put a lot of time into it. We shot it, I think, over. I think we had about 3 days to do our scene and the fight, and there was a few fights that we did. Yeah, so we camped out in Epping Forest for 3 days and had barbecues at night, and it was a nice team effort. It was great.
Yeah, those are the days. Guerrilla filmmaking at its finest. Then, like one of your early big credits, and I don't know if I'll be able to find a still, but we'll see. You might have one in your folder. Didn't you do something on Captain America? Is that right?
Yeah, I was basically an action extra on that. So I was again.
What is an action extra? Tell us the qualifications required for that.
Not a lot, really.
It just means you're involved in kind of doing this in the background with someone.
So yeah, action extras are someone with a special skill, whether that's that they're training in stunts or they have a martial background or they're sword fighting, or sometimes it's a special skill like gymnastics or dance or something. So you get a little bit of extra money to get shot and throw yourself to the ground or have a little background fight or something like that. So Captain America, there was lots of getting shot, running around, shooting guns, getting shot. That was the main thing. And then the standard extra work, marching, bit of drill.
So, I mean, eventually, like a lot of experienced stunt performers, you know, the natural progression in one's career is either to move on to second unit director, which I've done a couple of times, and it's always fun because it usually means action. And it's funny because on the big films, you'd always think that the directors get to do that stuff, and invariably not. So it's more fun being a second unit director because you get to do all the fun stuff with guns and tanks and things. So what was the first film that you either did stunt choreographer or stunt choreography or second unit director on? Or let's take the first one first.
My first feature as a stunt coordinator was a film called The Harsh Light of Day, which was a vampire film where a guy gets attacked by, or him and his wife get attacked by a group of thugs. His wife is killed, he gets left disabled, and he's visited by a vampire who says, I can give you your life back and you can get your revenge. And of course he turns him into a vampire. He's able to walk and move again, and he gets his revenge. So I actually only did half the film at the beginning part of the film where we had the attack and he gets thrown down a flight of stairs, and then the rest of the movie I wasn't available for, so they had somebody else do that. Right. But that producer and director went on to do bigger and better things, and about 4 years later, after we shot the movie, it actually finally got a release, and we had a screening at Leicester Square Odeon.
Yeah,
not the big one, the Haymarket one
with 1,000 seats, but the smaller one next door,
the slightly smaller one.
Yeah.
And yeah, shortly we did another 3 or 4 features together. So that was kind of a lucky break that, you know, sometimes you do the films where people do actually take you with them when they move up, and that's what everyone's hoping for.
it's always nice when those collaborations happen. Which director was that?
The director was Ollie. God, I forgot his surname.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said it was
Oliver.
a woman.
The producer was Emma Biggins, so that was who I worked with again. Emma
Right.
Biggins.
Okay. Emma Biggins.
Yeah.
So you would do a couple of. I mean, so okay. So that was. What would you say was the first job you did as a stunt choreographer, where you thought, okay, I'm going to push the envelope a bit here. I'm going to take things up a notch. And do some stuff I haven't done before. I'm going to push my own skill set. What would you say the first film was where you did that?
I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but I think they all do that to some extent. There's always something that everything's, every story is slightly different, and there's always something that they're asking you for that you might not have done before. Maybe not always. I know very early on I did a film called Allies, which is a war film.
Yeah, I've got a copy of that, and I know the guy who owns the Stug tank that was used in the filming, because we were planning on having that tank in my film if it had happened. So yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, on that we did some wire work, so we did some explosions. So I got in a guy that I knew who was a rigger and had a good aerial performance background. So he was my rigger. I put myself in the performance role. That's the one. That's a different stunt.
Sure.
But I was basically sitting on an explosive device, and when it went off, I got pulled up into the air and flew for a little bit, and then landed on the ground again. And we did a few
safely, presumably, because you're still here to tell the tale. Yeah.
Nothing broken.
Yeah. Well, that's
bit of a sore bum from the cork that they shoot out of the special effects hit me in the arse as I was flying away.
But I mean, you went on to do a couple of things for Scott Adkins, who's I've seen an interview with him. I'd love him to come on here, by the way. So please give him a shout. I'd love to interview him. Here you are working with him on the set of Avengement. Yeah. I think this is the second time you'd worked with him. You worked with him on One Shot first.
The first one we did was Eliminators, which was a WWE film,
right?
With Wade Barrett, who that was his wrestling name, and it was a producer that I'd worked with once or twice before. It was James Nunn was the director, who actually we worked together again on One Shot and a number of other things. But that was my first time with James. Tim Mann was the fight coordinator on that, he's one of Scott's kind of long-term collaborators. There were other scenes where we had jerk pulls where people are getting shot and we're pulling them back on a rope.
Yeah.
Lots of people getting shot, lots of big fights. So I'm kind of looking after the actors, making sure we've got the crash mats and padding and everything. I'm basically working with Tim to facilitate the fights. So that was my first one with Scott, and then we went on to do, I think we've done 7 now together.
But on One Shot, you were the stunt coordinator, is that right? So now we're talking a very complex film here, and you on this one, you had to plan stuff. This was shot during COVID to a degree, was it?
It was just after. It was February 2021.
Right. Yeah, we were still
the year after.
That was in that really weird phase where we didn't know if we were sort of half in and half out.
Yeah, everything had been locked down since Christmas, and we were all in a bubble. We were all in like the only accommodation that we could get because we were filming in Suffolk, so everyone was in accommodation, and they basically had to ask the owners of the accommodation, to open it just for us, because obviously people weren't allowed to go on holiday at that time.
Yeah.
And And I remember we struggled to get the accommodation because there were so many people that didn't want to open up, and we had to stay in our accommodations. We weren't allowed to mix.
So I know this location. This is that old airbase that's used.
Yeah, I've shot here a number of times now. So
yeah,
this was our preparation. So basically, there's a story behind this that we'd had about 2 weeks of prep, all on the base. So the whole team are there, all the HODs are there, and every day we go out and we walk around and we plan all the scenes from the script, and we kind of go, okay, that's going to happen here, and we're going to move over here, and cameras there, kind of working out the camera choreography. And all the time, the director, James Nunn again, is filming this on his phone, or I can't remember, a camcorder or something, taking it back to his digs and then editing it all together. And after about a week or a week and a half, he says, I've now edited the whole film, and it's only coming in at about an hour long. So we need another half an hour of action, something to cut out the script. So,
and this is how many days before, however many days of principal
this is less than a week before we start.
Fun times.
So he's like, Dan, why don't you take the opening sequence where the bad guys assault the base and figure out how you can make it longer. So this is me with basically the team of kind of 2 or 3 that I had available, because we couldn't bring loads of people out and it's low budget as well. So I'm trying to plan a military assault that I think on the day we had about 20 people for, or if not more. Yeah. With these 2 guys and me pointing at where everything should be. So I was quite proud with this in the end, because this turned out to be a really cool sequence. That wasn't in the script at all. We just created it.
And is this more of that planning? Yeah.
So this is as the bad guys jump out of their van.
Yeah.
Again, imagining where the other people are happening. We're talking about, oh, there's a grenade over there. Someone's going to get shot here. Then we're going to look over a different direction to see some more people coming out. They're going to go over to the building over there. So we're going to follow them. And the director wanted to make sure the camera was always following someone. So it was never like a fly on the wall one shot. It was always on somebody.
And you feel like you're a POV of someone you can't see almost. Yeah.
So at this point, the good guys are kind of way over in the background. So we kind of elongated the sequence by following the bad guys and seeing them opening up the gates, which is this bit that they're doing now, securing their entry, securing their perimeter, and then making their way back, which then the bit that's coming up is them, us finding a way to link the bad guys with the good guys who are in the distance at the moment. Yeah,
I can see them. This is fascinating stuff, man. It's that people will be interested to see the planning and sort of thing that goes into a sequence like this, which I think is really good to see the detail. Is that one of my old Kalashnikovs? I imagine they can't still be in one piece.
No, that wasn't it. No.
They must have died.
Got a lot of new ones since.
Yeah, I'm sure you must have done. So when it came to shooting this movie, which is named One Shot as part of the gimmick, it's like 1917. It's one shot, but also like 1917, it's got a couple of sneaky wipes in it. How did how many days principal photography was there on One Shot to get the one shot, as it were?
I think it was 20 days that we had.
20.
Yeah.
Okay. And is this your team
predominantly? That's part of them. That's one of our biggest days. I think that was when we did the assault. So that was one of the biggest days that we had everybody.
The assault is the opening sequence in the movie. One Shot with Scott Adkins, for anybody just coming in. And is that Mr. Adkins himself?
That is, yeah.
I thought it was. Stunts. Yeah, getting blown out a window. I mean, he's a very, very physical guy, because he's got, a career as a various martial arts disciplines. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
How did you find working with him?
Scott's great. Yeah, he's very professional, very down to earth. He works hard. He expects everyone else to work hard around him, and he kind of brings people up. He he's worked in some massive films, and he's worked in smaller films, and he's got a very strong interest in getting the action right, both for him and his fans, but he wants to do it properly, and he's, with the experience he's had, and he's worked with Jackie Chan, he's worked with more recently like Chad Stahelski, and all of the whole 8711 team and everybody, and from his experience and from talking to the people that he's worked with, he's got a huge amount of knowledge about action in general. Yeah,
I mean, one of the things I've always noticed with his films is that I mean, it's great to see that sequence and the planning of that sequence, and then that sequence. Now that weapons fire though is all CGI, right?
Yeah, they were all airsoft.
So I think the most important thing for the stunt guys to get right is always the recoil of the gun, which they do have a recoil. If you fire a AK, any variation of the AK really kicks into you've got to have the shoulder butt right here to and I think that's one thing where if you're watching stuff that's not well directed or hasn't been properly rehearsed, that's always a giveaway. So it's good to see reactions like that done properly.
We had a really good military advisor on this called Tom Lee. He's ex Royal Marine Commando, had some time in the Special Boat Service, so nice. He was with us every day, including prep. He did boot camps with the actors and any extras and stunts that came in when he could grab them. So he did a lot of work, and we got a lot of praise for the authenticity of all the characters in that. So I mean, the bad guys are a little bit stupid, as they usually are in these kind of movies, coming around corners without looking, that kind of thing. But, apart from that, most of the military authenticity was pretty good.
So you got to work with a huge cast of bearded people on Vikings. Now this is season 4, so I think my friend Donal Logue, who hopefully is coming on here soon, he played the king. I think the king's I think his character had been killed by season 4, so you wouldn't have had him. I think he dies in season 3, if I remember rightly. It's been a while since I watched it, but this was. Am I right in thinking this was filmed in Ireland?
Yeah, all of it's Ireland.
Yeah.
I actually did season 5 and 6. So
sorry, season 5.
Over about 2.5 years.
And were you stunt coordinator on both of those?
No. That was Richard Ryan,
right?
Who has worked on things like Troy and Stardust and Batman. So he's a big coordinator, very successful, and I kind of had a bit of a personal link with him. So I wrote to him one day and said, actually, I wrote to him for a few years and said, "Is there anything going?" Because I knew
it's me again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually he just said, "Yeah, send us a reel." And I sent him something, and he said, "Can you come out?" Whenever it was. So I went out and kept going out, and it's been a privilege. It's been lots of great experiences and good friends. Yeah. I still stay in touch with many of these guys. I've brought many of them over to England to work on some of my stuff. Some of them were English guys that went over to Ireland as well with us. So yeah, we all.
Do you remember if the chainmail worn in this picture, was it the heavy stuff, or was it?
No, it was like.
Was it the fake plastic stuff?
Yeah, plasticky.
Yeah, that's
good,
because
it's good. It looks good.
It does look good.
At least it's not knitted.
No, there was a brand of it that they used on the thing that Kurt Sutter produced, the Sons of Anarchy guy. What was it called? The Bastard, the something bastard.
The Bastard Executioner.
Bastard Executioner, right? And that was a show that I expected you to probably turn up on at some point, and everybody thought it was going to be a huge hit, and it it wasn't, sadly. And I know that some people that worked on it said that God, the costumes were so cheap on it, whereas the costumes on this show, I mean, this stuff looks really good. So this is a fight scene, in full. So you've got like your foreground guys who do key stunts, like the person who just ran in there, and that's one of our key cast with the nice ponytail, of course. And then you've got your, you know, in a scene like this, you'd have your mid-ground guys, and then you'd have your background, who would be your sort of action extras, effectively. Is that right? Is that the three fields effectively in?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, particularly when we have cast fights, you've got your stunt guys fighting your cast, then you've got a row of stunt guys around that fight who are kind of the protective barrier between the stunts and the extras. And then behind that, in the deep background, you've got the extras, and every few months the extras would have a boot camp with one of the stunt team to kind of refresh them and remind them how to do it safely, because there was always new people coming through. But a lot of the extras have been on the show since the very beginning, so a lot of them weren't too bad at it as me. This is me.
I saw this. I remember this scene. This was really well done. All of this, this whole sequence. That was you there getting killed.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Dan dies dramatically again. So to choreograph, for example, this sequence, so that's you firing the arrow, right? Yeah. So how much planning for a sequel like this in terms of rehearsal and then days of shooting for this one action sequence would there have been?
So Richard will have his list of the fight scenes throughout the season, and then depending on the shooting schedule, they will plan those in the stunt shed within the stunt team, and they'll have different groups of the core team who will break out and do all the fights. That will probably take a few days through different drafts. And then they bring the actor. Once that gets signed off, they'll bring the actors in to start training with the stunt team. The actors will probably have anything from a few days to a few weeks to train at these fights. And again, the actors that have been in the show for a long time all became pretty good at it because they've been doing it so often. And then we get there on the day. Usually the guys that have prepped the fights aren't the guys that are doing it. So when we arrive on the day, there'll be the bigger stunt team, and everyone will get allocated a role within the fight. If the fight's not being shot that day, then you might learn your part knowing that you're going to do it the next day or the day after. And then usually these battles would be shot between 3 to 5 or 6 days.
Right.
Yeah, they usually weren't more than 5 days, apart from the really like end of season kind of ones, which might go into another week.
Yeah, because I mean, I did I guess what you would call a day of physical acting work on this combat sequence on my film, and it was literally just a case of, okay, I'll play that part because we don't want another actor to come out to grease, you know. So I'll do it, running around with a gun. It will be fun. And I remember after I mean, it was really hot, but after two takes of running around with this body armor with a rifle, you know, heavy rifle, I was knackered. I was dripping with sweat. I was knackered. And if you're doing take after take of action 5 days in a row, that's got to be, you know, that's got to be exhausting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some takes where there's dialogue or there's key moments with the actors. There's some takes that could be 5 minutes long or more, and you're constantly having to move because you don't want to be the one person who's like slowing down or kind of looking around waiting for something to happen or stopping, which is even worse. So you've got to work hard. You've got to pull it out somewhere, and you help each other out and push each other, and there's ways that you can kind of take a rest and then break out again if you know the camera's not looking. But with some of these, there's like 3 or 4 cameras pointing in different directions. You can't see half of them, so you just got to keep going.
Yeah,
hard work.
Yeah.
And it's cold, it's wet, it's muddy, it's boiling hot, and the sun's shining, and you're sweating buckets, and you can't see because there's sweat in your eyes, and they're shooting blood in your face.
So we've got a mutual friend in Craig Fairbrass, who I recently had a project in development with at Amazon, and had a great time actually writing that script, co-writing that script with him over the summer of lockdown, funnily enough. And funnily enough, when I met Craig, one of the first things I said to him was, "We've got a mutual friend," and he said, "Who's that then?" And I went, "Dan Style." "Oh God, Dan, yeah, God, worked with him so many times." And I think you've worked together about 5 or 6 times now. And again, like Scott, you know, on set, I can imagine he's also very professional, wants it done right, has that similar kind of work ethic. So you've done a number of productions now for Terry Stone's company, I guess it would be.
I don't know if it's Terry Stone. The Foot Soldier films are produced by Carnaby,
and then
Andy Loveday.
Terry's is a separate company, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I've done a few others with Craig through other people. So I think we've done 8 or 9 together now.
Yeah. Since that conversation, I'm sure there's been a few, because that conversation was 2019. You've done several of the Rise of the Foot Soldier franchise. The turnaround on those films is pretty quick. What sort of time did you get on a production like that, as opposed to, say, Vikings, for example? You know, because you choreograph quite a few of these fights, don't you? Is that right?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. Each one of them has been different. So are
there any accidents on that?
Not that I can remember. Nothing. No.
I mean, it's. I guess it's a it comes with the profession, you know, like race car. Sometimes, you know, if you drive racing cars for a living, sometimes you're gonna crash. What supposedly set overseas, and I remember thinking, that's not that. Yeah, it's not that same hotel. How many days? There you are. How many days did you do on this altogether in terms of actual stunt work and preparation for a foot soldier film?
So again, each one's been different. Number 3, we had. Oh, it's really hard to remember.
Let's go with the latest. Let's go with the latest one, because that's probably easier for you to.
The latest one. So a day or 2 just figuring out, right? And then I have about a day with the actors to get them up to speed, or to learn it and take them through it. We were meant to have like 2 or 3 hours on it, and classic day, everything kind of
went wrong,
adds up, and I think we were losing light, and they had to move on to some. Did it Hong Kong style, really, which I can thank Tim Mann for all his kind of Hong Kong style, and I've learned a lot from Tim and Scott, and shooting that was really, being able to do that in half an hour was just going, okay, we're going to get this bit with this shot, and then move on and do this bit with this shot, and not worry about coverage for everything.
I mean, because part of being a second unit director or you know, stunt choreographer really is the same as you face the same main challenge as a director on the day, which is, you know, no proper planning prevents piss poor performance, but no plan survives contact with the enemy, and there's always things that go wrong. You've never got enough time. So I imagine you have that approach when you're on set, in the sense that, right, the ideal is that we're going to do this, but I know if we have to, we can do this. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I think the more experience you get, the more you get used to adapting and changing and even expecting that to happen. So you either have plan A, B, C, D, and Z up your sleeve, or you're just so used to it happening, you can think on the spot and go, okay, we've got 5 minutes left, or something's gone wrong, so we need to take that out, and we can still get the beats of the story if we get that bit and that bit and that bit, and nobody will ever notice at the end of the day because they see what they see and it tells the story.
Quick question from Keithy. Any particular weapon that people just simply always seem to get wrong or do wrong? So another way of maybe looking at that question is, what's one of the hardest weapons for a stunt person to master, perhaps, do you think?
I think if you speak to an expert, almost any weapon is not done correctly. A lot of the historical weapons are not authentic. There is a lot these days with the prevalence of HEMA, historical European martial arts, being more widespread now, that people are being a bit more educated in that, and you're seeing that come into films. But it's kind of the same evolution that martial arts took. If you look back at the old kind of James Bond and Star Trek, you have people karate chopping everyone every now and then, knocking everyone out with a karate chop. Whereas nowadays, that would be like you just get laughed out of the cinema. So you have to develop with the education of the audience. Some people take it further, and you get those groundbreaking movies where they've pushed the action to the next level. But you need the time to do that, because you need to train people. You need to get the actors and the stunt team to learn that style, and you need the time to show it effectively.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I've got to ask you about this. Tell me all about Ancient Black Ops Ninja, which sounds immediately like a film I need to see.
This was great fun. This was for Yesterday Channel. They did a series called Ancient Black Ops. So it was all about kind of specialist units in ancient times. So I think they did like we did the ninja and the samurai. I can't remember the other episodes, but I wasn't involved in the other one, so I wouldn't remember it.
That must have been fun. Where is this location that you're filming?
This is actually in Kent. There's an old military, I think it was a gun emplacement where they used to store ammunition and stuff. So these massive concrete walls, and if you climb up the hill, there's gun emplacements at the top.
One of them's just been converted into an Airbnb. One of the old casemates, and you can go and stay in it, and it's got quite a nice view out. It affords you a very good view over the countryside, because of course it's a tactical position. I know only an Englishman would think to do that, So that's where you were filming this. This presumably is some kind of action sequence for that.
Yeah, so we did the story of on the ninja one, we did the shinobi ninja, and on the samurai one, we were doing the 47 Ronin. So all of these, it was documentary. So all of these were like either vignettes or flashbacks to the different elements of the story, and then we'd do kind of the final showdown. So obviously the 47 Ronin. Are
you looking forward to seeing the new Shogun TV series?
Yeah, looks good.
Does look good. Yeah, I saw I'm doing a retro review of the old Richard Chamberlain one, so I've been watching that for the first time since I saw it. But a lot of people don't know that it was the success of that TV show, which at the time was the most successful international television miniseries ever. That kickstarted the miniseries as a thing. And if Shogun hadn't have been a success, it would have taken a lot longer for us to see the likes of that kind of thing. I mean, do you have one particular stunt that you've had to do either yourself or as a coordinator or as a choreographer, stunt or sequence, that has been more challenging or memorable for the right or wrong reasons? I'm giving you lots of flexibility in your answer here, Dan. That really sticks out, that you might be down the pub with your stunt contemporaries and go, yeah, that was a challenging day, but we got a great result, didn't we? Is there one that sticks in the mind?
I think I don't know if I'd put it down. Like there's been a few stunts we've done. I've done car accidents, I've done body burns, and they're always the ones that I'm most afraid of. They're the ones that have the most risk and the most kind of, well, yeah, the most risk attached to them. But it's often one person that's kind of involved in it, whether that's a car crash or a body burn, sometimes two perhaps. But it's usually a lot of pressure for one kind of relatively small thing, and there's a lot of safety that goes into it. There's a lot of thought and planning that goes into it. So although of course I'm nervous for my performers and I don't want anything to go wrong, it kind of happens as it happens, and I'm more relieved that everything went well, rather than
is this a body burn you're talking about here?
Full body burn, yeah.
Is that you?
No, that's Rob Bowden.
Now, is that somebody in a fire suit, as you call them in the industry? But that looks to me like it's had additional CGI flames put on top of it.
It does a bit, but I don't think it did. It was a big burn.
Right.
I think it's maybe the grade that they've put over it that just makes it look a bit VFX-y. I mean, I never know. They might have done something to it, but it was a big burn.
That's kind of annoying, isn't it? When you know, if you've done a big stunt and it looks a bit VFX-y because of a grade, these days that's quite frustrating, because everybody now, I think there's a real pushback and people want more practical effects in films. I certainly hear that all the time. So, you know, when you've gone to a huge amount of work to achieve something like that, you know, you want people going, yeah, that's a good stunt. Not the VFX on that, you know, don't look very good. Must you know, but it's fire, it's real fire. So I mean, but is there one sequence that what was the one that had the most unforeseen difficulties, perhaps?
I think that it's more like an entire sequence. So like the one in one shot, I'm proud of, if I can say that you know, we created that from nothing, and it went well on the day, but obviously the most important thing is when it goes well, when it meets the audience, and when the feedback is that it was exciting and that it was authentic and it felt true to the story, and the characters served the story served their purpose, the action served the purpose. So there is a pride of getting it right on the day and going, yeah, we nailed it. But then there's that secondary pride, which is sometimes unexpected, because you might have thought it's okay, and then the way the audience responds to it is really, really good, and you're like, oh wow, because you're never really sure. You know, it might look good to you, but it might not serve the story. It might not to someone who's seeing the whole production. So yeah, I think one shot, there's a lot of stuff in there. Avengement, which is probably the credit that most people know me for. That was a challenge, both on a budget level and just how much was in it. There was a hell of a lot of fights in it. There was long fights in it.
Yeah. I remember watching it, and I wasn't aware that you'd done the choreography. I don't think we'd spoken since pre-lockdown, and I spotted you in it. I think you did do a bit in it, didn't you? Yeah, I spotted you, and as soon as I saw you in it, I thought, okay, yeah, this is going to be a Dan Styles choreography production. Is this a real prison set? Is it real? This is a real
we
prison?
Went to Cambridge prison.
Is that a working prison?
No, it was empty. It was about a year not being used. So all the cells were gutted and everything, but it was a great space.
Right. So it wasn't like Shawshank Redemption, where they had real prisoners as some of the extras, which is I have heard of this location. This must have been
Colchester, sorry, not Cambridge, Colchester prison.
This must have been round the back of where the bar fight takes place. That's Thomas Turgoose.
Yeah.
He
was great.
And then you've got Leo Gregory there on the left, who I've met before. Yeah, I really like Thomas as a person and as an actor.
Yeah, he's very funny.
Yeah, and I sort of followed his career because he came up through Shane Meadows's films, which is nice to see. So you choreographed these fights here we've got, because this one in the pub was particularly good, I thought. It's very quick, so everybody's really got to be on their A game. And I mean, is that a real metal pipe he's holding, or is it rubber?
No, that's a rubber.
That's a rubber pipe.
Yeah.
But I bet, if it probably still hurts if it accidentally lands with the force in the wrong place. So that fight went on a really long time. How many days rehearsal did you have with your team? And then how many days did it take to shoot it?
So I created that fight over about a week with a bunch of guys elsewhere, and then we had about 3 days with Scott, and Scott learns everything really quickly, and we I think might have been 4 days, but we taught him pretty much all the fight
sequence. And I believe you were nominated for an award for this, is that right?
Yeah, it was nominated for the Taurus World Stunt Awards, which is basically the highest. It's like the Oscars for stunts,
like the Oscars for stunts. And unfortunately for you, that year you were only up against some small films. What were the competition in the same category?
We were up against Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which actually won the award. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp was in there. I forget the other ones.
I wouldn't worry about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
They were all Hollywood blockbusters, Marvel and all of that stuff. So yeah, it was tough competition, but it was nice to just be in that group.
You did well to be in the room with those people, I think, and well deserved. Would that have been the sequence at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with the pool and the okay. I mean, I have to. That's one of my. I love that film. It's my favorite Tarantino movie, and it's a movie I whack on every few months, and have shown lots of clips of it at the movie quiz. So a big thing that lots of stunt people are doing, and I'm always getting posts about it on my timeline from this actor or that actor. I did wire work today, and there's shots of them flying around a room, padded room, and all the rest of it. And this is something that you've recently done a course with, and I think you're going to be doing another one in the not too distant future, in early next year, I believe.
In March.
And I mean, this is definitely something that stunt performers kind of want on their reel, because there's so many people are using green screen and stuff, and this is for those kinds of sequences, particularly the sorts of stuff you see happening in high-end action films, Marvel, this kind of thing. How essential do you think it is for stunt performers to have done this kind of thing, or have it in a notch in their belt, as it were?
I think it's really useful, because even if you're doing a jerk back, which is kind of what these ones are, that you need to have that aerial awareness. It's very different to if you've got other aerial skills like gymnastics or high jumping or high diving. There is some crossover, but it's a very different experience because of the way you're being lifted, as opposed to motivating your own lift. So it's good to understand what happens to your body in the air, how you can control your movement in the air, and also how you're landing, because with some of these, you're not always in control of where you're landing. So you need to have some awareness of where your body is, so that you don't hit yourself in the face or stick an elbow between your ribs or something. And that's where you can get injured. And on a set, you're not always doing it with a crash mat as well.
Right. Okay. Apparently, I think the last clip that we showed, we showed too much of it because YouTube already flagged us. So, I mean, it is Dan's show reel. Hello, and I'm interviewing Dan. So, I know it's already out. It's funny though, you get flagged for absolutely everything on here. They used to be a lot more lenient about it, but you can't show trailers and talk about them anymore. You know, everything is copyrighted up against the wazoo, but you can appeal stuff. I have a feeling, because I'm interviewing you and you're in all the relevant scenes, it might happen. But I had a similar issue with I interviewed the director of Rambo 3, Peter MacDonald, who's the British director who took over from Russell McCulkay, who directed Highlander, because he got fired about a week in because they got like really behind. And we were showing lots of clips of stuff he'd done, and he was also second unit director on Zulu Dawn and Bridge Too Far. So we were putting up clips of that, and he was telling us, yes, we did this shot with this, and but yeah, the whole interview got taken off. So Dan, if it gets taken off, you're going to have to come back, and we're just going to have to like just have to not show those clips. David Macy and Desert Phoenix, who are two of my regulars, are saying we're back on. We were taken down momentarily. Yeah, it was. I think it's because we showed a clip of a fight sequence that Dan choreographed for the Scott Adkins film Avengement. It might have been that. I was a bit worried about showing that. David Macy I worked as a special action on MQS, but I don't think I met Dan. Did Dan come to the Beowulf set with Ian Van Temporary? I'm sure I remember him. Maybe someone similar looking. There's no one similar looking to Dan. There's only one Dan Styles. Do you remember?
No,
any of that ring any bells?
I didn't do Beowulf. I'm not sure what MQOS is.
I'm not sure either. Is that Marvel Universe or something? I have no idea.
I don't know.
So obviously there was a period where work was, you know, we had COVID and all the rest of it. In terms of you getting money for the government to sustain you through lockdown, did you get any kind of payment as someone who?
Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones, and I think because I'd had a good few years up to that point, it was a decent amount I could declare. So yeah, COVID wasn't as bad as this year where we go on strike without going on strike, and there is no work and no help either. So
no. Yeah, so I imagine you're quite relieved that the strike is over.
Very, yeah.
Because you work on productions where, okay, a lot of it's UK-based shooting, but it's dependent. They're often financially, you know, they're co-financed by American companies or American distributor companies, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So
surprising how much it affected over here. Really, I think everyone was a little bit taken aback with how much we are reliant on the US market, whether it's through actors or writers or finance or something. But yeah, everything dried up. There was very few things going on.
It'd be great to know this stuff. I agree, Keith. It gives a real insight. So the stuff that you've worked on recently that's not out yet, we've still got to come. One of them, well, one that just dropped, which I watched the other day, was called Boudica. There was a BBC two-part drama about Boudica. I vaguely remember because Alan Marks did the visual effects on it. This was a very similar kind of film, but it was quite a challenging shoot in terms of material and numbers of people that you had to make it look like an army of thousands. How do you approach that sort of challenge for something like that?
Well, lots of experience in low budget filmmaking comes in handy.
Yes.
getting people to run around the back of the camera and join in again on the other side. That was multiple times we were employing that little trick.
Right.
Lots of smoke to hide the background. Lots of people running around. But yeah, we pulled it off. And I saw the movie, and that was one of the ones I was very pleasantly surprised with. Another film from Jesse Johnson, same director as Avengement.
Yeah.
And yeah, as much as he would rather have a budget, and he deserves a budget, he's also got the experience on working on these types of movies, and he's also got a hell of a lot of experience in the industry, both as a stuntman, stunt coordinator, and a director. So he really knows what he wants, and and how to get it on the budgets that he's given.
Yeah.
This was one of our hero fights that we were creating.
Yeah. This was in. I remember this sequence actually in the film. So this is on location in Suffolk. Is that right?
Yeah.
And was that? I see something of maybe a set in the background. Were you filming sort of like? There's a few ancient and Viking villages. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. Reaching for the man's crotch. We'll not debate that further. But was there like a standing set there that they use? Because I know there's a few Saxon and Viking villages and things in Suffolk that you can hire out for filming.
Yeah, so we had a large portion of land which had a big open field, and then next to it had a forest. So a lot of the film is set either in the field or the forest.
Right.
They built a roundhouse, like an old Anglo-Saxon roundhouse, in part of the forest next to the field. So that was Boudica's house with her family, and then all these battle scenes were in different areas around the woods, trying to make it look different, with different types of foliage in the background.
I mean, if I had a criticism of the film, it was the world did feel very small, and it did feel like it was. I didn't feel like I saw any of England. And Suffolk is a part of the country that I know really well, and has got some great places where you could shoot a good vista shot with someone standing in rivers behind, and you might have to do the odd bit of digital removal. But
I think the main thing was on this level of budget, just having a location move is such a costly and time costly endeavor just to take, because we were based in this field. Anytime we went away somewhere, it was hours and hours of taking all the vans, all the cast, all the costumes, and having to have all the the rooms and areas to dress everyone and get everything prepped. And there were times that they did go out. They'd shot at a museum that had authentic kind of set already dressed. We shot in actual Ipswich town centre for a couple of scenes.
I saw that. I was surprised to see that. And how was that, filming in the town centre?
That was fun because we had a public audience, which is interesting. Shooting battle scenes with public just off to the side watching what we're doing. But
it's got a couple of very sort of old worldly streets, because I remember we looked at it as a location, quite narrow streets, market streets, and I guess you were kind of going for that sort of English market town of the time kind of vibe.
And we shot next to a church because it had that old style brickwork. I'm sure there's some historian architect that will tell us that the shape of the bricks wasn't the right period, but we could get.
Yeah, no, indeed. It's not really a film that was going all in for that. Is this also next to the field and the forest that you were mainly filming in?
This was a little bit further away, so this is actually very close to the Bentwaters Air Force Base around the back. So this was kind of a location we were at for maybe a couple of weeks or a week and a half, because there was a few areas around this part where we filmed as well. There was a little stream and a lake nearby that a lot of the scenes with Olga was shot, and the little girls and growing up, the rescue from her being imprisoned. There was a little church near here where I think there was a scene shot inside, and then this was the finale where we had kind of a bowl with those banks all the way around, which are surrounded by Romans, and then the English kind of find their way trapped in this bowl with all the Romans shooting down on them from the outside.
Yeah. No, I remember the sequence. How many days did you have to sort of prepare this final fight sequence and train your key principles and that kind of thing?
So on this one, similar to Avengement, really, I had I knew this was coming up, so whenever I had a chance, I sometimes just do training sessions with some of my team. We were just kind of coming up with concepts, and I had a folder with probably about 100 videos of different ways of killing people with spears and axes and swords and shields.
Interesting folder to carry around, but I can see why it would be essential for this movie.
Yeah, and then we chose the ones we liked. We put them together. We developed sequences for the specific characters. We tried to give each character a style, and that kind of narrowed down our view. So all of that, I'm not sure I could count, but it was, maybe probably only a couple of weeks if you add it all up in hours. Then we came to Ipswich, where we got the some of the cast. I think Olga had about 3 or 4 days rehearsals with us. Maybe not even that, might have been 3 days. And obviously all the way through the shoot, because this was right near the end, so all the way through the shoot we're grabbing her whenever we can to top up. How
was she with the sword
fighting? She was really good. Yeah. Yeah, she was great.
She's quite an athletic presence anyway.
Yeah, she was very keen. Like, she wasn't one of the actors that kind of wants to learn it once and then goes and have a cup of tea. She wanted to get it right. She, we built her up. She was, it wasn't something she'd done before, in a great deal. I mean, she had done Centurion, but I think she only had one fight in that with a spear, but now she had a sword or a sword and shield, so it was something different. But yeah, she did it really well, and there's a lot of her in the film. She did have a front double, but a lot of her stuff is there.
Yeah, I mean, she is the lead. Question from David, which I think the answer is probably yes. Is Dan on the Equity Fight Directors Register or British Stunt Register? I'm guessing the EFDR. Right. You tell me, Dan.
Either.
Oh, you're not either.
I'm probably eligible for the Fight Directors Register. I think I need to get a fencing qualification, which I don't have, but it's kind of been on a to-do list to do, but I don't really need to do it. Stunt Register, I've been back and forth about. I'm going to do it.
Is this kind of a stunt equity equivalent? Is that what we're talking about?
The Stunt Register is a body that is basically a listing, a group of stunt people. It's very strong in this country. Places like America don't really have a register; they just have groups. Other countries, Australia has a register, but then France kind of has groups and stuff. So different countries will do different things, and the Stunt Register requires a certain amount of training and a certain amount of skills, which you were mentioning earlier. There's been a number of things in my life that have gone towards it, and then a number of things that have prevented it, whether that's injuries, having a baby, having too much work, and to be fair, not necessarily needing to do it. It does put me at a disadvantage in some ways, because it is quite a close-knit community, and they have a lot more networking opportunities and opportunities to work their way up through their system. It's I would do it if I could. I think at this point in my life, it's not as achievable as it might have been 10 years ago when I was free and single and fit.
I don't know. I would have thought your body of work would have, got you on there. But hey, what do I know?
They don't recognise that at this point. And I think if I did join, I'd be joining in their kind of grading system. I'd be joining as a performer at the lowest level, so they wouldn't take kindly to me doing coordinating work. I imagine. So I would be basically starting from scratch.
Well, we're getting up to the 90-minute mark, which is when I always give my guests fair warning. Is there something in your repertoire, and I haven't jumped on all the folders because you gave me a plethora of material here to work with, which would be a shame if we have to record it all again. I think there might just be one bit that got cut out of Avengement. But is there before I wrap up, is there anything in particular that you've got a funny story about during shooting, or something that maybe you wanted me to mention that I haven't touched on? I haven't talked about Snow White and the Huntsman, Romans, Lily Allen, London Heist, Marine 6, Close Quarters. We barely touched on One Ranger because, Dan's repertoire of work is quite extensive. Never Back Down, Revolution, and so on. The People of the Cave, which is a new movie. I think we should mention that because that's been in production for quite a while and it looks pretty interesting. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that, maybe?
So that was that's actually an Egyptian production, and we shot in Egypt and Morocco. We had a bit of a hiatus, so it shot in 2020, in between COVID lockdowns, and then there was a little bit of an issue with the producer not being very honest.
Yeah, that happens with producers, I've heard, in the industry. Terrible.
And then over a period of 2 years, that was eventually settled, and a new producer came on board, and I got the call that they were going back into production again to finish the film that they'd started 2 years ago.
Right.
So we jumped back out to Egypt and Morocco, and we shot some battle scenes. We did an assault on a palace. We did this was a gladiatorial scene, and we did a big Roman battle. So
what was your role on this?
I was the stunt coordinator on this one.
Wow. Okay. So so that's your first stunt coordinating job in Morocco.
Yes.
Was this at the Sabat Film Studios? Is it called?
No, we were on location in Morocco, out in the mountains.
Right. That must have been amazing.
That was brilliant. Yeah, it was great fun, and we had an amazing team. A lot of the Gladiator had just been out there. Gladiator 2 had just been out there before we were there. So a lot of the team, a lot of the stunt team, a lot of the
I
the
forgot
production
that was.
team.
I forgot that was filming Gladiator 2.
Yeah, that's stopped for now.
You must have been. You must have been keen to get on that.
Yeah, I would have done. I had an injury earlier this year, so yeah, I would have applied when all my friends were auditioning, but some of them went over. But yeah, we basically inherited all their crew and their stunt team.
Right.
So I took a few guys over, and then we had the Moroccan stunt team who'd all done like Kingdom of Heaven and Gladiator, both Gladiators and all sorts. So they were a great team to work with.
Probably a few people on Black Hawk Down, I would imagine, and
yeah, I expect so.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, I imagine the biggest challenge that was different from maybe stuff you've done before would have been the heat.
Definitely, yeah. In Morocco, we had, it was like a heat wave, and particularly for us, UK and a couple of Irish people going over and a Norwegian guy, we were all not used to having that kind of heat. It was 40 degrees, give or take, out in the desert with very little shade.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had a couple of extras passing out. One of my stunt guys was close, but we kept managing to stop when he was getting a bit white.
It's got to be lots of hydration, lots of water between takes, and yeah,
as much as we could.
Yeah, can imagine.
But everyone looked after each other. I was really pleased with the guys. They let me know when it was really serious, but otherwise they looked after each other. They kind of took it in shifts to go and get water, and yeah, it was a good team.
When can we expect to see that being released? Because I'm quite keen to see it.
I couldn't tell you for sure. I would assume maybe next summer, perhaps.
Right.
Just giving it about a year for post-production.
Are you looking forward to seeing? I had Paul Biddis on here, did an interview with me. I'm sure you know of him. Are you looking forward to seeing Napoleon?
Yes.
Oh, mate, maybe you and I should go and see that together when it comes out on a proper big screen. let me know, because that's definitely a film I want to see on the biggest screen I can get.
Yeah, I know Ronan, who's my business partner at ID. He's going to go, and he asked me to go on. Can't remember what day, but I might go with him. But yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, let me know, man. I'd love to come along. Really want to see that one, and I want to go and sit with some people who will appreciate it, so we can have a good gas about it afterwards. I'll be doing a review about it straight away. So Dan, what else have you got coming up? Anything else we should look out for?
So I'm allowed to say that One More Shot, which is the sequel to One Shot, has been announced. I can't say anything else other than Scott is in it.
Right.
And
is Jesse directing it again?
This is James Nunn.
Again. Okay. So, sorry. Jesse directed Avengement. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So we shot this in February this year.
Oh, so it's filmed already?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So again, all in the perceived one take. Much more challenging. They've ramped it up both in location and action and story, and yeah, it was a very ambitious production.
And you were stunt coordinator on that.
Stunt coordinator again, yeah.
Fab. Have you seen the finished film?
I haven't seen anything.
Right.
So I know just from hints from the director, I believe there'll be a cast and crew soon, and probably a trailer dropping fairly soon. But yeah, I don't know anything. I haven't seen anything.
I'll tell you what, mate. It'd be great if you could come back when that film drops, and then you can talk us through, the hows and whys and
I'd love to.
That
was a tricky one.
You probably lost a few hairs on that one. That's fantastic. David Macy has said, I have followed Dan on Facebook. A great contact for the future. May need him one day. Yeah, get him before he gets any more injuries. Well, look, Dan, thanks so much for coming on. We've gone over 90 minutes. I don't want to keep you much longer because I know you've got a newborn running around causing havoc downstairs as we're speaking. But it's been great having you on the channel. And I like to support creatives at every level of production. I'm also trying to interview every single person, every single different crew position on a set. So I actually also want to do an interview, for example, with a catering company and just talk about all the challenges of doing that, as well as, makeup, continuity, wardrobe, etc. So if you know of any crew people who would be willing in positions that I haven't covered yet, then do please put them in touch. And particularly people that are just starting out, we always like to push and promote the careers of people. And if you're working on any independent films that also could do with a bit of a plug, always let them know they are very welcome here. So coming up next, guys, we have my interview with Sean Cronin. That's going to be on Thursday at an unusual time of 4:00 in the afternoon, because he's like between film premieres right now. So he has directed 3 films in about a year and a half, which is a staggering amount for any producer, and also acting in between various other things in that. I'll also be doing a special stream about season 6 of The Crown, part 1 this weekend. And I'll be doing my regular gaming stream and taking that a little bit further, plus talking about my book project for 2024, which is my new game book. So that's going to be interesting. See if I can get Dan to be on the cover. Okay, so that's it from us tonight on the Outcast Creative channel. Thanks for tuning in. You might get some bits cut out on playback. I apologize for that. I may have to take the stream down and re-edit it and put it back up again. Somebody calling you in the background there, so. Is that your kid playing on a...
I think someone's doing some cooking downstairs.
No problem.
With a power
All right,
tool.
well,